Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great American Little Town podcast. Today is Wednesday, January the 8th. I'm your host, Sean Farmer, my co-host, Mr. Dan Denier.
That's me.
And today we have a great show. I would like to introduce our guest first for the show today, Miss Amy Mendez.
Hello.
She is the Economic Development Director for the City of Galt. She wears many hats, but that's her official title. She's kind of like operates kind of just under the city manager. So we're moving up the food chain with our guests. So someday we'll have maybe the city manager on. But anyways, but for now, so
we should see if the governor wants to come on.
I don't want the governor on.
I do.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Happy New Year, everybody. 2025. Can you believe it's 2025 already?
Right.
I mean, it seems like just like 2 minutes ago, it was like 1990. And
what did Prince say? Party like it's 1999.
Right. I mean, I feel like it was just seriously, just time goes by. I mean, I feel like it was just like a few days ago that you had hair and my hair wasn't gray. And
well, since our last podcast, we're both older and wiser.
That's right.
We both had birthdays since then. Now,
yeah. So. Dan and I had birthdays since we've last been on. So yeah. He turned 85 and I turned 45.
Pretty close.
All right. Anyways, all right. Well, let's see. I got a little business to take care of before we get into our topic. So I would like to let everybody know that the Great American Little Town podcast is an independently operated, not-for-profit podcast, and any statements or views expressed by the hosts or his guests should be considered independent of the City of Galt, although we have a City of Galt representative here. It's not an official news source. Unless otherwise noted, this podcast is neither sponsored or approved by the City of Galt as an official city news source. The views and questions of this podcast are solely that of the host and intended as an independent source of news and, most importantly, entertainment. Because that's what we're here to do, is entertain everybody.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we're right. Well,
yeah.
It doesn't mean Sean's right.
Yeah, we're trying to create an accurate news source, but I mean, sometimes, we might, fact check us. I dare you. All right. So 2025. So what, I mean, things that affect Galt, but what's new for 2025? I saw that minimum wage went up. I didn't know that. The California minimum wage went up first of the year to $16.50 as of 2025. Yeah.
It was 16. Is that what it was before?
I don't know what it was before.
I think it's supposed to continue to go up for the next couple of years or something.
Well, I know that the whole fast food, or if you have a franchise that so many locations, it's $20 an hour at fast food, right? But the regular minimum wage, I think that's what confuses people. People think that minimum wage is $20, and that's not true. It's just I think I don't know. I think it's stupid, but
you got to make more money so you can buy all Gavin Newsom's electric cars.
All right. We're not going to talk. So we're trying to keep, we promise we're not getting into big politics. So we're not going to talk about our governor or president and that stuff. I know we have a new president coming in soon, and we're exiting our old president. So that's coming up this month. I'm not going to really dive into that, but that's coming up.
Biden signed something just a couple days ago, and it had to do with public pensions. If you retire and you have a public pension, and because the way that it's been for like the last 20 or 30 years is if you, for Social Security purposes, you don't get as much in your Social Security if you get a public pension or something like that. And he just signed something to basically change all that. So as a future public pension retiree, I appreciate that.
Yeah, both of you guys, not me. I'm a private sector person. I want to be on I want to be panhandling in a few years. So tonight's show should be exciting. We have some great topics. We're going to talk about the C Street construction project. I know that's very, some people are very happy about that. Other people are not so happy about that. So I get it. I've heard all the things, but we're going to actually just talk in detail about some things that people may about that project and try to maybe answer some questions that y'all have that are watching the show or will watch the show. So you understand kind of how it all came to pass and how the design came and what the city has done throughout the project, and kind of update you on what's happening with that project and where we're at with that. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to move on to, after our intermission, we're going to talk about some business stuff. So Galt businesses, small business in Galt. We're going to talk about some exciting new businesses that are coming to Galt, exciting new small businesses. And also Amy's going to kind of fill us in, give us a sneak peek on some businesses that are interested in coming to Galt that are kind of at the table right now, and she'll kind of mention some of that. And then we'll talk about some things like, what does the city do to get businesses here? I know people are always saying, why can't we have this or why can't we have that? So we're going to talk about that kind of stuff too. So those are, and then we have, of course, our Galt trivia. We have our trivia tonight. We have a Stratton's gift card for pizza tonight to give out. And so stay tuned for that question. I'll come after the intermission. So I want to talk about, you wanted to give a shout out to somebody. You want to do that now?
Yeah, we can do it now. I want to give a shout out to my favorite oldest niece. I've got an oldest niece and a youngest niece, so it all depends on. They're both my favorites. So
you had to preface it.
Yeah. But Sierra, my favorite oldest niece, my sister Debbie's daughter, had her second child today.
Oh yeah.
And so Harrison James Paulson was born at 12:50 this afternoon, and he weighed 9 pounds 12 ounces.
Oh,
And
wow.
21 inches long.
How much did
He's
you
a
weigh?
Big boy. I didn't weigh 9 pounds 12 ounces.
Well, I'm just it's interesting because sometimes and I mean you're a big guy, right?
Yeah.
So but sometimes you hear like, well, I was only like 6 pounds I was born, or you hear about like somebody who was big and then now they're like a small person. So it's not always just because you're born big doesn't mean that you're going to be.
I had a black eye when I was born
Oh.
because they had to go in and turn me, and when they turned me, they gave me a black eye. So when my dad saw me in the hospital for the first time, he said I looked like one of the drunks in town that used to get in bar fights all the time because I had a black eye.
So your dad's name is Harry. Is his actually real name Harrison or is it Harry?
No, it's Harry.
Harry.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious.
But that was so. Their oldest daughter is Hazel Jean, and Hazel was my dad's mother, and then Jean was my mom's middle name. So they tried to,
Oh, wow.
and then
That's
James is the father's dad's name. So they're trying to coordinate all of them.
Harrison's a very cool name.
Yeah.
Well, and not to get off
He's a big
topic,
boy.
but it is kind of cool that you see these classic names coming back into style. Like I have some in my wife's side of the family, they have a Lucy, a Clara.
Yeah.
I mean, Clara was my grandmother's name. You're getting like Harrison, James, I think is very common already, but just old school names, like
Mhm.
I think they're just coming back. Hazel, obviously that's
Yeah, a lot
So,
of the rubies and
yeah.
things like
No
that.
more Dylan and Charity and all these. No offense if your name Dylan or Charity, but I'm just trying to think of these Skylar, all these like the cool names from 2002 or something like that.
Write the hate mail to Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I mean, Sean, I forget who my mom said she named me after. I think it was Sean Cassidy or something like that. You remember Sean? Is that before your time? We're old.
A little bit.
We're old. We're old. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so Dan and I grew up in the 80s. Now, I'm not going to ask you how old you are, because that's not respectful, but you were in the 80s. You didn't grow up in the 80s, right?
I was born in the 70s, late 70s.
Okay.
So
Because I mean, if you grew up in the
Sean
80s,
was born in the early 70s.
because if you grew up in the 80s, you're part of the cool club kid, and I just didn't know if you could be part of that club or
Oh,
not. So that's why I was asking you. So you're right on the cusp of that. I don't know.
Do you have any older siblings?
no, just younger. I have 2 younger brothers. So they were born
I thought
in
maybe
the
you'd be
80s.
like the little sister that would follow him around or something.
No, I always wanted a sister. No, just brothers.
All right. So I want to talk about a few community events that are coming up before we dive into our first topic. So we have on February the 7th, we have Night to Shine. If you have not heard of what that is, it's actually being co-hosted this year by Horizon Church here in Galt, and of course the Tim Tebow Foundation, which is really the anchor of that event. It's a great event where they actually bring in special needs kids to have like a prom, more or less. I'm just kind of ad-libbing here on what that is. And this is the first time, from my understanding, that it's been in Galt. It's been in Lodi the last few years, but this year it's going to be in Galt.
Really?
Yeah, at Galt High School. It's going to be a big deal. So they've already have all their guest spots are already taken. It's like 200, but they are looking for escorts or buddies, as they call them, right? So people to walk with the students, whether male or female. So if you're listening to this and you want to be an escort or a buddy, or I mean, it's not appropriate to say the date, but you're kind of going with one of you're going to be the buddy for them. So they told me if you would actually be with them the whole night. If they want to dance, you dance with them. If they want to play games, you do that. There's like do a thing where they give them crowns and stuff. So you participate. So that's like you're with that person the whole night. So if you're interested in that, please look online. You can probably look at I think it's horizonweb.org. We're going to post the in our chat. We're going to post the link for the information. But Horizon Church in Galt is doing it. I'm sure you can find it on Facebook and I think the 25th of January is the cutoff. So if you're interested in being part of that, please check it out. It's going to be really exciting.
My son actually participated last year in Manteca at the church.
Nice.
His baseball team did. And there's some great pictures. They had such a good time. It's a really fun event.
I think everybody I've ever heard that's participated talks about how fun it is and just how
really
they get more out of it than I think
Yes.
anybody else, So
Well, I'm interested in doing it. I'm gonna check my calendar and see if I don't have any commitments, and I think I might do it. Of course, I was thinking it'd be cool to wear like a cheesy tux like they did on Dumb and Dumber, like the pink whatever. I don't know if you can find something like that, but
You guys should both dress up.
yeah, you can be. I can be Jim Carrey, and you can be whatever the other guy's name. I forget. Yeah, we can stick fight as we come in.
Yeah.
Anyways, so check out Night to Sign. The next event is a St. Martin's Foundation fundraiser. It's a pasta and bingo. It's on the 8th of February, so it's a little far out. We'll probably talk about that when I get on the next show because we will have another show before that. It's going to be at the Littleton Center. It's a fundraiser for that organization that is by the St. Martin Foundation. That is a local organization if you haven't heard of it, and this is their 3rd annual fundraiser. So we're going to post that flyer in our and at the intermission point, we'll be posting some of these flyers. So if you can get information about those. The Galt Lions Club is going to have a crab feed on Saturday the 18th at the Littleton Center. That starts at 5:30, and that is a fundraiser that they do, I believe, every year. So check that out. We'll post the flyer for that. So that's the Galt Lions Club. So if you're into crab, I'm not really a big crab feed guy. I tell you what, I go to crab feeds and they bring this crab and people act like these people literally get so excited, like they're bringing plates of money to these people. I don't get it. I'm not that worked up.
Delicious.
Really?
Oh, I love it.
Are you a crab? Do you go to those, Amy?
Yeah. There's a big one that we attend every year. Fresh crab too is the best.
You bring your own butter.
When you
the little milk.
have to crack it and make a giant mess everywhere.
You guys get the cheesy little plastic bibs and all
You
that?
have
Oh
to.
my
Absolutely.
gosh. You guys. All right. Well, I apologize. I'm just not. I like seafood. I'm not a crab guy. So I've been to some of them. I just don't get all excited like everybody else does. Papas and Wings is hosting an event called Paws and Wings Adoption Event. It's a pet adoption event, and it's going to be on the corner of C and Lincoln Way at Papas and Wings on Saturday the 18th as well. It's from 11 in the morning to 4 p.m. I don't know all the details about exactly what it is other than what I've told you. So we're going to post a flyer about that too in our chat later on. So I think also too, I have another event. Do you guys know of anything else going on that you wanted to mention? No? Don't everybody stop me from talking at once.
I think the city has Winter Bird Festival.
That's right.
Coming
Winter.
up in February,
Yes. And that's going to be at McCaffrey.
I believe.
Usually at
McCaffrey
McCaffrey.
Yeah. There is a ribbon cutting by the Chamber of Commerce, a ribbon cutting and a mixer hosted by Galt Sign and Screen Printing. This is they're celebrating, I believe, 30 years in business, which is quite a milestone for a small business in Galt. So congratulations to Chris and his wife, Rhea, and the Newell family for 30 years successful business. So shout out to you guys. And it is actually this Friday, the 10th of January. Starts at 4:30. Gonna have like food and all kinds of stuff. I'll be there. So if you want to swing by and say congratulations to Galt Sign, please come by. It starts at 4:30, but it'll be going, for a couple hours at least.
I think you get a free T-shirt too.
Oh, you give
Doing-
them free
you're doing
T-shirts?
screen
Okay.
Printing there. Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So I had some city stuff. Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I was just going to mention that there is a GoFundMe for me to help me retire early. If you'd like to donate to that.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah. Says the big winner from Tahoe. Yeah. Dan won some money in Tahoe. I'm not going to say how much,
bit.
but it was a little bit, just a little bit.
Got a little
Yeah.
lucky.
Yeah. So anyways, I think if I come up with the other things that I had Parks and Recreation, had some exciting things coming up, and I'll mention those as we move forward. Actually, I have it. It just came to me. So on the 21st of this month, which is the next council meeting, first council meeting of this year, actually. So the 21st is Tuesday. They are bringing back the approval for the design for the skate park and also for the water slide. So two big projects coming back for design approval. Well, they've actually kind of finalized the design more or less. We just went out to bid, right?
So I think the water slide is for the actual construction of the water slide.
Okay.
The skate park is design.
Okay.
I asked that question this morning during a meeting because I was curious too.
So if you are someone who's interested in the skate park, please come attend the council meeting on the 21st. You can make public comment and give us your input because we are going to be finalizing a design. We have the people that we hired to come up with the design, and this has been going on for a while. So this is not the first, but we're getting towards the finish line on this. And so once we approve the project, then it goes out to bid and they start building it. So we can't go backwards. And usually, I mean, not saying we can't ever make small changes, but typically when you lock a design in, you're kind of moving forward based on that with money and stuff. So, yeah, spread the word about the skate park, and I'll post some of this on social media as well.
City council meetings start at 6.
That's right. 6 o'clock, City Hall. If you've never been, you can come in. If you want to speak, there's a speaker sheet on the left or the right. You can just simply fill it out, walk up and hand it to the clerk. You can speak about anything you want in the beginning of the meeting for open public comment, but if you want to speak on a specific agenda item, such as the skate park, you can actually wait and speak on that specific item in general. So that's how it works. So, but there's people there. You can show up and ask somebody, hey, how do I speak, whatever, and they'll tell you. It's not difficult. So, all right, well, let's go into our first topic here. So everybody's been talking about the C Street project and all the construction going on up there. So I know everybody's been dealing with that, and I want to thank everybody for their patience with that project. It's been actually, it's went pretty smoothly. Actually, I'll be honest with you. A lot of you may have not been around when the Lincoln Way project happened. That was a complete train wreck.
I wasn't here, but I've heard a lot about it.
Yeah, they literally had the construction project lasted like over a year. And they literally had the streets completely shut down for like months and months at a time. There was businesses that literally had no access for months. Now I know there's been some talk online about this project and some businesses during the construction. But in a minute, I'm going to have Amy talk about the outreach that was done. But I think that personally, you know, a lot of people reach out to me. And I can only remember 2 instances where during the construction, somebody came out. There was an issue where someone couldn't get in their driveway. So they had access, but they couldn't quite make the turn because of where the barriers were, the temporary K-rail were set up. And our project guy went out there, and the construction guys, they poured like a makeshift ramp so she could pull in. I mean, they did it that day. It was really super quick. And then we did have another business that what had happened is we had done some outreach to the businesses, which you're going to talk about, but the business changed hands between that time and when the construction started. So this particular new business owner was not happy with the removal of a couple of parking places that were in front. The previous owner was like, yeah, we're fine because we have a parking lot, so we're not okay with that. This new business owner was not. So our city manager went out there and had a conversation with him, and then we actually were able to make some changes. This was, of course, when the construction was just started, and we actually were able to accommodate that business. So other than those 2 things, you know, the Las Islitas Plaza was probably the one that didn't have any back entrance. So they were was most critical to give them, and they had some shutdowns for a couple of days, but they were notified and stuff. So I think that went fairly smoothly. I know there was one business that was a little bit upset with the notification, like they weren't clearly notified. But again, I think, you know, the goal is to be perfect. I don't think we're always going to be perfect, but I think, yeah. So Amy, with that said, why don't you tell us about, let's start before the project. Take us through a little bit about how we kind of got to what the C Street project was, kind of when it started and kind of.
Well, I first was involved back in 2021. So my background and what I've done for the city is mostly economic development, business development type duties. And during COVID, I took over community engagement. And so that's how I was involved with this project at the beginning, which had to do with the outreach piece, specifically to the businesses and to the community in general, just kind of letting them know what was happening. And back in 2021 is really when we kicked off the design piece. And so early 2021, I think our first community meeting was in July. And so it would have been probably May-ish when we really started to put together.
Now, what do you mean community meeting? Are you talking about like a council meeting or a planning commission meeting? Or are you talking about
an actual community workshop? You know, we engaged the businesses. We did a business walk. We also did a community workshop inviting the businesses to give their feedback on really what they wanted to see as part of the construction project. there were certain criteria that we had to complete as part of the project because most of it was grant funding that we received. And so we had to be cognizant of what was included as part of the project, but we also wanted to work with the businesses and we wanted to work with the community to understand better what they wanted to see as part of this project and the design. And so back in May, probably 2021, around that time is when we really started to put together sort of mapping to determine, what area we wanted to make sure we included as part of the outreach, which included a large area around C Street, businesses along C and 4th Street, Lincoln, but also residents. And so we invited all of the businesses. We invited the community. We did social media outreach. We did postcards that we mailed to invite really anybody that was interested in the C Street development to the business or to the C Street Walk, which was the first kind of step. That was held in July of 2021.
I was told that 560 mailers were sent out to property owners or business, anybody that thought so 560 is a lot. So that's definitely not just C Street businesses.
No, and it just wasn't businesses. We also wanted to make sure we informed the residents, knowing that this was going to be a significant project. And, ultimately it's going to be there for years. And so we wanted to make sure we got it right and we wanted input from the community. And so that was a big part of the design phase, was really engaging not only the businesses, but community members and residents.
So I did participate in the business walk, and I remember a lot of business owners that are in that area, property owners, were there. So we all it was like a field trip. We all walked, we split up into groups, into several groups, and we walked with business owners and the engineers, and we would go to like one corner and they would say, okay, here's what we're thinking about doing. And then somebody would say, you know what, I don't, that's not going to work, because if you've lived here a long time like I have, this is somebody speaking, it wasn't just me, but there's people like to turn this way or whatever, and you can't, whatever. Like, that's, I remember those conversations happening throughout that business walk.
And that was really the purpose of it, was to gather feedback from people who walk that area, who bike that area, and who drive through there, to determine what the designers that were working on this project needed to pay attention to. And so that was kind of the first step. And we did significant outreach to invite folks to the walk. And we did have a significant number of business owners and property owners who participated as part of that council. We had our engineering team that was there, the design team with the consultants that were there. And so we did try to gather as much feedback as we could. And there was a lot of good feedback that we received. The crosswalk, I think, right at Market was a kind of a talking point. There's a lot of traffic moving through here, and they're typically driving really fast. How do we slow traffic down? How do we ensure that people can cross the street safely? We have high schoolers who are crossing at that location, but there's a lot of folks who park in Galt Plaza in the Safe Mart Shopping Center and cross the street to go to the market. And so, pedestrian safety was a big one that we had heard from, a lot of the businesses in particular, and trying to slow traffic down. That was one that we heard from a lot of the businesses. I think people were getting frustrated with speeding vehicles up and down C Street.
Well, I do remember the traffic study. I was talking about this recently, and I remember, and I don't remember the exact number, but I remember it was something like the 85th percentile on the traffic study for C Street in that corridor, going by Save Mart all the way down to like Lincoln Way, whatever, was like 47, 48 miles an hour. And I believe, if I'm not wrong, I believe that area is either a 30 at the most, but it possibly could be a 25. I know it drops to 20 when you get into Old Town, like down the Little Town, but I mean, clearly it's over because the street's real big and you just go fast. And I know that I did get some information from John Griffin. He's our public works director. He gave me a ton of information today. And so the project was an $8 million project total. Out of that $8 million, almost $6 million of it came from SAGCOG grants, which have parameters on, and a lot of it had to do, and not to get into the weeds of this details, but just to kind of, in layman's terms, a lot of it had to do with air quality and accessibility, pedestrian, whatever. So that's where your requirements for enhanced crosswalk safety came in. Obviously the air quality stuff, that's where your bike lane stuff come in. And I think, I've had a lot of people say to me, well, Sean, we're not a bike town. I don't disagree with that. We're not a bike town now, but you got to think, I see a lot of kids riding electric scooters a lot nowadays. And that street hasn't been touched in like 5 decades, not to this level. So you have to think, what will modes of transportation look like in 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, 15? That street has to be we're trying to envision what would be needed. So, and the planters that are by the bike lanes, they protect the bike lane. So it was really critical that we have a protected bike lane, not just put green stripes on the street. So that's why, because some people are saying, well, why did you put the planters over there? You need the medians there. But that was really kind of one of the requirements was that. And then, of course, you mentioned, and I think this has been the number one complaint that I've heard is the narrowing of the lanes, right? And it actually was intentional because they were trying to slow people down. That was the goal. The reasons were to slow people down for safety and also to slow people down so people would look around and see businesses and things like that. I know people are probably just maybe rolling their eyes right now and go, that's stupid, blah, blah. And you're welcome to your opinion. I get it. But those lanes are 11, the narrowest lane, which is like 3 or 4 spots to me, which feel the narrowest if you drive the whole thing. They're 11 feet. That was towed. And just so you know, the 11 feet, that the average vehicle is about 6.5 feet wide. And even a big rig, a semi truck is only 8.5 feet wide. So you actually cannot have a vehicle over 8.5 feet wide unless you have a wide load with a pilot car and all that kinds of stuff and a permit to even do that. So, and the truck traffic, right? For the deliveries for like Samar, those are all rear delivery, whatever.
Yeah, on the backside.
On the backside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, this is a project that is going to live on for decades, before the next time it gets redesigned or tore up. And we really want to try to create a connection to the Old Town area. And I think that was key as part of this in creating that pedestrian connectivity and the ability to bike and ride a scooter or whatever it might be. We have so much development on the east side. And once Carillion comes through and you're able to make that connection to Bosau that goes over the overpass, you want people to be comfortable getting into the Old Town area. I mean, what's better than riding your bike to go to dinner or to go, into the Old Town area?
Yeah, to go
get
to
ice cream
Back Alley Brew House or the
Yeah.
tavern, or go to Velvet and have ice cream or some of the summer.
And I think ultimately, that's the connectivity that we really want to create. And so this was key in making it a safe transition into the Old Town area. Even with the Galt Market, we've looked at how do we create a connection from the Galt Market grounds, if there's an event down there or if it's just the market and you want to walk into the Old Town area or you want to ride your bike. So that was, I think part of the discussion as well is creating that connectivity into the Old Town area, because that's the heart of Galt, and that's really what, we want to see developed and we want to see activated. And so I think that was key to this.
I know Dan has a thought. Before you pipe in, I want to give you your thoughts. You mentioned the crosswalks. Obviously our crosswalks were not compliant. We had to bring those up with the flashing beacons. They have the little island, the protected island in the middle. So obviously those were, especially that one by Denny's. That one was like super unsafe. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, that was the one that was, I think, the key kind of discussion point.
And then we added another one down by is it 7th Street? The corner of 7th where Dry Creek Liquor is. We added one there because there's a lot of bicycle and foot traffic to the liquor store. There typically is. Same thing with like Quick Stop.
There's a taco truck.
And there's a taco truck, yeah. And so people were jaywalking there a lot, and we felt like we needed a pedestrian crosswalk there. And the business owner on that corner was very receptive to that. So, Dan?
Well, you should listen to me and install the 10 roundabouts that we've talked about.
Yeah, see, Dan wanted 10 roundabouts. Then we'd really be.
I think it'd been better. But the question I have is, we hear about, and you see on social media the talk about it. It's not like it's a 10-mile long road. You're talking about, what is it, 0.4 of a mile or something?
4.4 miles.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not even like I could walk it.
Yeah, but it's the heart. It's the heart of town, though. So, like we talked about this, Dan.
Right.
It's a big change, right? And people, and I'm the same way. Like people, sometimes they just don't like change, and it's
Right.
a hard adjustment.
It
really is.
People are creatures of habit.
Mhm.
People get up at the same time every day. They take the same shower routine. They make, and if something throws off that routine, it ruins their whole day. Well, this is a change, and this is a change that, like Amy said, the road hasn't been touched in 5 decades, 6 decades.
I mean, there was some stuff we discovered that happened with the construction. Like we found gas lines and electrical that was way shallow under the road. I mean, stuff that was very out of compliance.
Well, and I thought somebody had a conversation. They were talking about the crown on the road,
Yeah, it was
and
really bad.
and that's been flattened out quite a bit.
Yeah.
So walking across those crosswalks going from one side, especially for somebody that's maybe, in a wheelchair or in a scooter or something, it might actually be a little bit easier and safer for them.
Yeah.
I think too, I've heard so many people say that they're bottoming out, like when they come out of the shopping center, specifically, I think the Little Caesars shopping center, you come out of there and you really do hit the bottom before you come back out because of the crown. So,
but
and a beautification component is huge too, because I think once the landscaping's in, it's going to look gorgeous.
And I want to mention something about the landscaping in a second. So let's not forget about that. But going back to the design, I think one of the big questions is who approved this? The people that are upset, that are complaining. And just so you know, I have a lot of people that come to me and they're excited about it.
But come to planning.
So, but this didn't get designed in a silo. You mentioned all the outreach, but it wasn't just business walks. We had at least 2 that I remember that I attended, forums where people came and they had all these different, there's like option 1, option 2, option 3, and people could go up and they could say, no, you can't have that. You can't have a median there. This driveway needs to be accessible. And one of the big things, input that I gave, to be honest with you, was, so you have the 3 entrances into the Save Mart Plaza. You have the one at Civic Drive, which is between Taco Bell and Carl's Jr. Then you have the one on the backside of Carl's Jr. And then you have the one over by Denny's, right? Those are the 3 main, whatever. Well, the engineers originally had the center one, which is right by the drive-through at Carl's Jr. They had a median right there. And I was like, that is most widely, more people use that driveway than they use the other 2, because the light gets backed up and whatever. And they're like, oh, we didn't realize that, because, they're not from Galt. So they took the center and they made that a suicide lane. So we have a suicide lane where you can pull out and you can cross and get over to Starbucks and all that. So that was a major modification that was made. But we made how many changes were made? And they came back and they go, how about this? And people, no. And they change it again and again and again. And it went through a lot of changes.
And I think when it came to city council, it was changed again.
It was.
There was several modifications made at the council meetings as a result of some of the concerns to driveway access for businesses and such. So, but we did 2 community meetings. The first one was just gathering input as it related to the design. And then the second community meeting that happened in September of 2021 was actually conceptual plans that were provided. And so businesses and community members and residents had the ability to go in and make comments on them, to give their input, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they thought needed to be changed. And all of that is encompassed on the city website. We have a webpage that's dedicated to the C Street project. It's actually www.cityofgalt.org/C Street project. And the newsletters are located there. The presentations are there. There's a lot of information that shows kind of the history of the outreach that was done prior to the design.
Yeah. So,
well, one of the things mentioned was that part of the design was to slow traffic down coming through that. And I think one of the things that people don't think about when they talk about slowing, it's slowed me down.
Yeah, you got to pay attention.
I've driven it a few times and I've driven slower, but you know what I've found? I've also found that by driving slower, I actually kind of get to see the businesses that are along that stretch a little bit better, because I'm not speeding through there, or I'm not in a rush to get through there. So I think in some ways it's kind of that thing where, if you take your time and slow down a little bit, and you can kind of see, oh, hey, maybe this place has a special in the window, or a sale going on, or something that, you might be able to notice.
Shout out to Mark Jackson from the barbershop there on C Street. He was one of the ones he mentioned. He said, thank you for fixing that crown the road. My clients would bottom out coming in and out of the barbershop. Yeah. He also mentioned the speeding. He said he used to call it the Galt quarter mile, because folks would race from stop to stoplight. They would race from Civic Drive to the other one. It was like let's go for it. And it's absolutely true.
Right.
It's crazy. So people have talked about, well, gosh, you hurt those businesses by doing this construction. They were concerned. And I think and I do appreciate people being concerned, even if they weren't a business owner in C Street, being concerned for those businesses. And so what I want to ask, I think, and I'm going to ask you, how many times do you think it was brought up in a council meeting, at least to you and the staff, how important it was that the outreach during the construction be like super good?
I think lessons learned from all the stories I've heard about Lincoln Way and, how it impacted the businesses there. And so council was very concerned about making sure that the message was out there as to what was happening with the construction, what the timeline was. And so part of the contract award that was done for the contract for the construction was that a PR firm be hired as part of that in order to really have a robust communication campaign with the businesses. And that was intentional. We wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to walk and talk to the business owners, which we did. The PR firm, I have an analyst in my department who handles community engagement. We, with the community, with the engineer, the city engineer, walked and talked to all of these business owners to give them the information to make sure they were aware that construction was coming. This is what to expect. We had business cards that we handed out with a QR code that went to a specific website, cstreetproject.org. We had a hotline that was set up for businesses to call if they had concerns or questions. We had a dedicated email address. And so we did as much outreach as we could really at the front and to make sure that there were access points for anybody who would have questions or, need additional information. We had, a database of businesses that we had email addresses for. And so we did outreach to try to keep them on the loop on what to expect. It was a little, I think it was a little confusing at the very beginning, the way that they only closed one lane of the street and it was the wrong side of the road we were driving on and signage was all messed up. And, I think that there were definitely some hiccups at the beginning, but, it once people figured it out and we had the signage set, I think that it ran a little bit smoother.
And it wasn't perfect all the way. There was a couple times. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There was probably about at least 5 or 6 times where I would traverse the street and notice that there was maybe some signage that wasn't quite clear, and I thought it was a little confusing. And so I would let Public Works know, and they would get right out there and they would talk to contractors and they would resolve it. And I mean, obviously, every project is different. This street there's no cookie cutter, right? So every street that they've done jobs in, the lanes are different. They point different ways. So it was fluid. I always say, look, things are going to happen. It's construction. If anybody knows construction, it happens. But how quickly you address it and whatever is the important part. I think it's important to note for people who are watching that this whole changing the lanes and the directions, it was a bit confusing. But the other alternative was to just shut the street down completely and save a little bit of time. But we didn't feel that saving, maybe a month off of the project was worth having businesses have no access for like a month. We're like, no, we can't have businesses. As a matter of fact, I could be wrong, but I don't believe there was any business that had zero access. Now, the plazas, we had to put up special signage. Like Save Mart actually put up a special sign. They painted arrows to try to direct people in to come in the back of Save Mart, and it took some getting used to. I know, because I had to do it. But so there was, changes made to where you can access businesses. But as far as complete access being denied where you could not get to a business, I don't know of anybody that, and again, I could be wrong, but I don't know of anybody that I heard of or knew of that was blocked for more than 48 hours at a time.
Yeah, I think that Los Islitas, that shopping center was the most difficult because they only had one access in and out. And so we did have to really work with them.
Shout out to Los Islitas, Carlos, and
all of the businesses in that center because they all sort of suffered through it. I guess double-edged sword, they had access pretty much the entire project. However, when they were shut down, they had no parking. And so it was a little bit of a detriment, I think, but that really was the only business that I recall that didn't have access at all. And so
we lost one of our decorations.
I think it's important too that people understand there was no ill will intent.
Yeah.
Nobody was out to hurt the businesses along C Street or to make life difficult for the businesses I think it's been just the opposite. I think the city has made an attempt that they actually like the city didn't have to do all of that stuff. No. The city didn't have to do all that outreach.
Well, I'll tell you something else too.
But again, they learned from the Lincoln Way project that they understood how important that was. And
learning is important because John Griffin actually told me today too. He said, look, after this project is going, after it's over, we're going to debrief and we're going to revisit the whole project and decide if there's anything that we think could have done better and then learn from that, whatever. And that's all you can really do because nobody's perfect. What you try to do is you try to be as perfect as you can, but construction is complicated and it's like having your cake and eating it too, right? We don't want to block businesses, but we also need to improve the street. So how do you do that kind of stuff? I expected there to be some heartache because it's just people's nature to be upset about things. And I do understand that. And I believe me personally,
Nobody likes change.
I've had people message me directly and saying that, shame on you. This is all on you. It's all on you. You're the mayor, so it's your fault. And, I'm not going to vote for you next time. I mean, I've had little people tell me that. And I'm like, well, so
Can one vote on the council make a decision?
well, no, yeah. I mean, it's a 5-person council, but I just want to go back to, this is not a design that the city council said this is the way we want it. This was a design that went through a lot of public vetting, and then it came to us. And I felt that when it came to me, and we did make changes at the last minute, I was like, no, there was supposed to be this right here. But I have to say, honestly, that through the whole process, other than those two things that we took care of very quickly, I haven't had anybody come to me. I haven't had one business owner come to me during the construction process and like blow up and say, this is going on, you need to fix this right away, whatever. And in fact, I've had several businesses where I would actually talk to them because they were my customers or I knew them personally, and I would reach out and say, hey, everything going okay? They're like, yeah, everything's fine. They let me know we're going to close my street tomorrow and then whatever. And I understood, I was like, all right, well, hey, if you need anything, let me know. I would tell my customers that had businesses there. And they'd be like, no, we're rolling with it. It's, it's okay and stuff. And so, so the landscaping piece. So what I was told is, so the original, because we kept making changes, right, to accommodate all this stuff, the landscaping piece kept getting scaled back and scaled back. And it was also approved pre-Measure Q. So we didn't have that funding source. Now that we have Measure Q, which is a huge boost to the Parks and Rec, landscape maintenance budget. So you guys are now stepping back and rethinking the entire landscape part of it and actually looking to beef it up and make it more robust as far as like make it more mature landscaping, more mature trees, what I've heard, and maybe even adding a lot more trees in some areas that are really, and I've seen some of the areas, these are not going to affect anybody or anything, that they're going to make it look a lot better, but they're not like going to block something or whatever. Like these are spots where it's like, why didn't we put a tree right there? Well, we couldn't afford it in the budget, but now we can.
Yeah, that is true. We were basically within the last couple of weeks, the decision was made to forego the landscaping for right now so that we can reevaluate what was planned to be planted. And that was intentional because when we went through the initial landscape design plan, this was pre-Measure Q, and there was a lot of concern about maintenance and sustainability and what the city would be able to maintain. And now with Measure Q, the idea was we really need to, we don't want to do this wrong. We want to make sure we get it right the first time. And so we don't want to go plant trees that are not going to provide a good shade canopy, or plant trees that are going to get demolished by a truck driving, down the street. And so,
or as some people have mentioned, they don't like, why are you going to, people have made this comment. Well, you're going to put a bunch of landscaping in that you're not going to take care of because we can't take care of what we have. And honestly, I get it. The memories of 2018 when we were cutting back on mowing and stuff because we were in a budget deficit, those memories are very fresh in my mind as well. But we have turned a major corner on that. If anybody hasn't noticed, we're actually systematically redoing a lot of the medians and all the planters in town. You'll see a lot of them have rock in there now, new bark, new trees. If you go up over the overpass, all those are down already. And it will take time, but they're all going to get redone and they look nice.
Yeah, they look really good.
So I think it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to, I mean, if you drive down an old town, if you drive in an old, mature old town area, you see a lot of trees and stuff. Trees are really what makes it. That area there between Civic Drive and 7th Street was so bare and open. I don't even know that there was, except maybe that the big eucalyptus tree that's on the corner by the bank, and maybe the ones that were over by where the Frosty used to be. Other than that, I don't know that there was any trees.
There's some in front of the Save Mart. The
shopping
center has some trees.
That's right. Yeah. There's some there. Yeah.
Sean, when the project started and the construction stuff, and again, I went to, I think, one of those community forum meetings, but remember I told you, I said, I'm reserving judgment because you didn't put in my roundabouts. I'm reserving judgment until it's all done. And I'm still reserving judgment. I mean, and I'll be honest, the first day I drove through there, I went, ooh, that feels a little bit tight, right? And I told you that. I said, ooh, that feels a little bit tight. But after I've driven in a few times, it's like, oh, it's not that bad. Yeah. It's not that bad. And like it grows on you. You start to get used to it. And
there's only one spot, which I mentioned to you, Amy, and I mentioned to Chris, that I think that, there might be some very small, we can't go in there and redo we can't go in there and just start tearing stuff up. But there might be a couple small tweaks that we find, maybe this isn't going to work, whatever. Like, for example, let me use this example. So I'm not giving you promises, but there is a discussion right now. I'm going to throw this out there. And if any of this comes back on me, I'll take blame for it. But if any of you are familiar with Chaos Corner, and if you know what Chaos Corner is, it's the Arco, Starbucks, McDonald's over there by Twin Cities. So the entrance and the exit out onto the frontage road, there's that little pork chop right there, that little cement pork chop. That thing is like totally hammered, man. The reflectors have been tore off. I've seen a car high center on that where the tow truck had to come and was pull them off. So we're actually looking at possibly removing that because we feel like it's more of a danger than necessary. So that would be a great example of how something was put in, and then after it's being used, we're like, you know what, that little curb space turn, whatever, maybe that won't work. And so maybe there'll be a couple spots where we can make some slight adjustments after people use it and get used to it. But the important thing is we need to get used to it. We need to use it and let people get used to driving it, see what it looks like when it's done, completely done, and then go from there. Yeah. Right. So
I can tell you that I drive in and I typically take the C Street exit when I come into the office in the morning, and it looks like a totally different entrance. I mean, the gateway in there looks, granted, they redid the median right when you come off the freeway, which looks really good.
Yeah.
But you also get into, when you come over the overpass, it just completely looks different. So I'm excited to see it landscaped. I think that will make a huge difference as well. And we've got some good drone footage that we took of the before.
Oh, that's going to be cool.
And so before they started construction, we had one of our police officers take some drone footage video for us so we could do a before and after. So we'll make sure that we push that out when we get that finished.
Sean, do you remember the City of Gulf sign that used to be in that median by City Hall?
Mm-hmm.
There was like the road, you go behind it to get to McDonald's. And like, I mean, that was a median. We had a median there. And how many years
That's
was
right.
that
I
there?
forgot. It used to go straight.
It was like
right
a triangle right there.
Yeah.
You could go behind it and then come around. And
so there's talk. I don't know if it's in the budget, but there is talk about trying to do some kind of.
so medians aren't new on C Street, just so you know.
So you call it a tombstone or something, like almost like a, like if you come into towns, you see this like digital thing. It's like upcoming events, and it's like a scrolling digital kind of little thing. There's talk about doing something like that, right? At some point.
We have been working on some type of design in front of City Hall for an electronic, not billboard, because it's definitely not that big, but something that you can see when you're at the stoplight to advertise city events or nonprofit events that are happening in the community. And so Parks and Recreation classes that may be coming up. And so that we're still talking about it. We had a couple of preliminary designs. They were very expensive.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
So,
Elk Grove has one of those. Is it on Laguna where you get off and you go over Laguna like you're going to go to Home Depot? There's one right there, I think, by kind of across from BJ Steakhouse. There's one that they have one there. It's like digital, and it says like, has like the Lions Club and the Rotary, all those symbols on it. And then, but it has the digital. I'm pretty sure that's where it's at.
We've talked to Elk Grove, and they've provided us with what they had been using. And I don't know, the ones that we had seen from Elk Grove were not digital.
Okay.
And I think what we ran into was that it was really expensive to print advertisements for these signs because they're so big. And we didn't want to put that cost on the nonprofits if they were the ones having to advertise. And so we still like the digital idea better because it's easy for us to change
and you
out
can update it. Yeah.
Well,
the graphics.
the city has a non-digital information sign on A Street and Lincoln right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know who updates it, but I want to give them a shout out because they do a pretty good job of keeping that updated. And
but the digital one would be so nice because we can put a ton of stuff on it. Whereas the fixed one, you can only put so many letters in there, right? Like the little snap-in letters. That's like old school. Yeah.
Well, that was, you remember in front of the old high school, there used to be
the one at the high school is a great example. That one's cool.
There used to be one on the grass right there that was, like you said, with the snap-in letters. They'd go out there. The kids would go out there homecoming Friday, or whatever, right? And then they got rid of that, and they installed that digital one there at the high school now. Yeah. And it is good. It's,
that's back when Dan and I went to Galt High. Back when you used to walk, 15 miles to school with no shoes on in the snow both ways and all that stuff.
Yeah, when cameras were actually cameras instead of phones, and
right. Yeah. The good old days.
Yeah. Walkman.
No phones.
Yeah.
No,
your phones were attached to walls.
I'll tell you what, off topic a little bit, but I it blows my mind. I'll sit at a crosswalk by the high school when the school's getting out or it's lunch or whatever, and you have like student after student just going through, and they're all just like this in their phones. Like they don't even look up. They're like just on autopilot. All of them, you just watch them go by, and you're like, "Jeez."
First thing I do when I wake up is check my phone.
I know. That's
It's
a whole,
terrible. I mean,
that's a whole
you
nother.
got to see who.
That's a
called
great
or
topic for
texted
our
or-
podcast. We
Kind of
should have that
notifications
conversation
you
someday.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we covered some bases on the C Street. I think, just saying out there to people who are not happy with it, that I've heard your concerns, believe me, and I understand. But I have to say, I believe we did as much outreach as possible. And the bottom line is there's just a lot of apathy in Galt. People, just have busy lives, and I'm not faulting them for that. I'm just saying people have busy lives and they say, well, I don't have time to go to council meetings. I don't have time to go to public forum. I don't have whatever, and so on and so forth. And so I get it. Look, I get it. If you don't have time to come and give your 2 cents on stuff, but also but then also I would say for those people that are like, having buyer's remorse, more or less saying, gosh, I wish I would have, been involved more so I could have whatever. We can only do what we can do. We can only do outreach. I actually don't recall, Amy, to be honest with you, I don't remember one single public comment at any council meeting ever during the entire process so far where somebody came to a public comment and said, I'm upset because of my business is being impacted, such and such, blah, 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 or I don't like this, whatever. Not one.
Yeah, I don't recall any.
So, I mean, I think if there was a couple comments, and I'm going to leave this is the last thing I'm going to say about this. A couple comments were saying, that their voices have fell on deaf ears. I think it's important before you accuse somebody of having a deaf ear that you actually had to have tried to tell them something, and then you can say a deaf ear after that. So, I mean, if someone had come to me and said, look, Mr. Farmer, I tried to reach out to you 5 times, or I called you, or I emailed you, or I came in, whatever, and you just ignored me or whatever, and you didn't, talk to me about my concerns, then I think you could have a valid conversation and say, you didn't listen. But to my recollection, I don't remember anything like that. And so, we try to do what we try to do. Staff tries to do what we try to do. And this council is very pro-business friendly. I mean, not only am I a small business owner, Paul Sandu is a small business owner. Miss Rodriguez was the president of the Chamber of Commerce. She's very pro-business. Yeah. Matt Pratton was a business owner in Galt for many decades. I mean, you have 4 of the 5 council members have been business owners. And actually, Bonnie owned the business as well. She owned the newspaper. So, I mean, they've all been business owners. So we understand business, and we are very business proactive. And so we're going to be talking about that on our next topic when we dive into the business topic. But so thank you for sharing that stuff with the construction.
I did want to touch on one thing just real quick before we wrap up on that topic, and that's in regards to community outreach. I think that, it's important to the comment that you mentioned about if you can't come to a city council meeting to give your feedback, or you aren't able to reach out to one of the council members. We have tried to come up with creative ways to engage the community on things. The parks master plan is a big one right now that we have been trying to, connect with the community to gather feedback on what the community wants to see in regards to parks and amenities and moving into the future. And there was an online survey that we did to try to gather feedback. We also, the consultant that's doing the parks master plan went to actual parks.
They went out on the weekends to the parks and just
Saturday,
came up to people and said, hey, we're from the city, we want to ask your input and talk to people firsthand, right?
So we're trying, other means of connecting outside of just expecting people to come to city council. But, it's a work in progress. I think that there's always things we can do better. And
you can always do better. And I think, me, and as you know, Amy, you worked for the city long enough. During my 6 years, you've been here the whole time. In my 6 years at tenure, that I'm someone who's I'm always the guy that's like, yeah, good job, but can we do? I'm always that guy who's raising the bar higher and higher. And it's just my way. And sometimes it comes off a little bit like maybe I'm not happy, but I am very happy a lot of the times. I just always think about, well, how can we do this better? And you know what? But that's how you do things. But I can say honestly that just in generally speaking with the city of Galt in the last 5 years, that the outreach that the city does through social media and all this stuff is 1,000 times better than it was, 8 years ago, honestly. I always preach to you guys, when I say you guys, I mean the staff, that it's one thing to make information available where you can go find it, and it's another to try to push that information. And I think in this day and age we are right now, you have to do more pushing than just making it where people go find it, because people don't know what they're not seeing. They don't know what to look, and so you have to push it out there. And so it's a work in progress, right? Yeah. And we're doing it. And I know you're heavily involved with social media with Galt. I know you have help doing that now, but originally when we really made big strides in social media for Galt, you were the person doing it.
Yeah, that was
right.
I cut my teeth on social media here at Galt because that was not my
but now
forte.
we have staff doing it.
Yes.
And we have, and so, but I just want to publicly say that I'm very thankful for the social media efforts that you guys do. I think it's great, and I like seeing that. And there's many times where I'll call up Chris, our city manager, and say, "Hey, this is going on. Can you guys put something out about that?" And he'll go, "Absolutely. We were already talking about doing that." And bam, they put a social media post out about it. And PD does a phenomenal job, right? I mean, their social media presence is crazy. They're putting out arrests, they're putting on that, and that's all about trying to keep that transparency and that connectivity with the city. We can't do business. We have to leave the idea that if you want to talk to city council, you can show up at a city council meeting, and you can, but if we don't hear you from there, then we don't care about what you say. That mindset is outdated, and we can't do that anymore. And we're moving past that.
And I think this is a perfect opportunity for a shameless plug for our city newsletter. We do issue a city newsletter every other week, and it is full of information, events, announcements, any type of news articles that we want to push out as it relates to housing development or economic development. We try to put everything we can in there to communicate, and that's every other week. And you can subscribe on our website at cityofgalt.org/city news, and you can sign up, and that'll come straight to your inbox every other week. It's also posted on our Facebook page every other Friday. So
we will post that link in our comments so that you guys want to subscribe to the city. It is great.
Sometimes if a person wants to be informed, they have to put a little bit of effort in
right.
to get informed as well.
100%. Yeah, I mean, there has to be some meeting of. You have to be meeting both ways. It can't just be all. Whatever. So, so we are at looking
8
at
o'clock almost.
We're okay. Yeah. So we're gonna take we're close. So we're gonna take a little intermission here in a minute, and we come back from our intermission. We will be doing our trivia, and so Galt trivia coming up, chance to win a gift card, and also we are going to be diving into our second topic and finish off the show on that topic, which will be about Galt businesses and some exciting news. So stay tuned about some cool things we're going to talk about coming up in Galt. So with that, we will be back in about 3 minutes, guys. So we can take a little break. So we will see you in a bit.
Used to daydream.
right, welcome back, everybody. We appreciate you hanging through the intermission there and sticking around for the second half of our show. So if you missed the first half, we were talking about the C Street project, so it was a pretty good discussion. And now we're going to move on to talk about Galt businesses, new businesses, existing businesses. Dan and I might go down memory lane a little bit and talk about our favorite old business in Galt. But before we do that, I want to throw out our trivia question so that you guys have time to simmer on it for a while. And we'll be watching the chat. You can also email your answer in. For those of you that are not using the chat or don't know how to use the chat, you can, if you're watching it on your TV, for example, you can pop your phone up and you can send me an email to greatamericanlittletown@gmail.com. So greatamericanlittletown@gmail.com. You can shoot the answer into that. First person to get the right answer, and we have our technical person, Kaylin, my daughter Kaylin, behind the scenes right now, and she'll be watching. And the first person to get the right answer will win a gift card to Stratton's Pizza. Yes, Dan.
I think we should abbreviate that email. That's a mouthful. Great American Little Town. Why don't we just go galt.com?
No,
or galtgmail.com.
Because we're trying to plug the name.
No, but we should abbreviate it.
Dan went to Galt High School. He can't. It's a lot. It's a mouthful to do Great American Little Town. He wants.
It is a mouthful.
Yeah. Anyways, it's not hard. You guys can figure it out. So our trivia question is going to be, and of course, we have to play our fun little trivia sound for our trivia.
I'm gonna get my phone ready.
Google it really quick.
I'm gonna answer it. I want to.
All right. So the trivia question today is related to business because that's our topic. So the question is, what is the oldest business that is still functioning in the city of Galt currently? What is the oldest business in Galt that is currently still open? That's your trivia question for tonight. So if you know it, shoot us in the chat or an email to greatamericanlittletown@gmail.com. So let's talk about business. So Amy Mendez is our economic development person. If anybody knows about what's moving into Galt, whether it's a business or who's looking at Galt or who is driven by and pointed and said, we should open a business there, she knows about it. I mean, she's in the know because she's the person. So tell us about, so one thing we get, people are always saying, why doesn't Galt have this? Why doesn't Galt have that? Like, we used to have a bowling alley. We used to have a movie theater. Why can't we get a movie theater? Why can't we get a bowling alley? I mean, the city of Galt doesn't open businesses, right? The city of Galt just, if someone comes along and is interested in Galt, we try to engage them as much as possible and get them in. So tell us about your job and over the last years and what you do and the places you go to do that kind of stuff about trying to convince people to open a business in Galt.
Sure. So I've been in economic development for, I'm dating myself now, 21 years. My job primarily has been business recruitment, business retention, and helping businesses expand. So on the business recruitment side, as it relates to retail in particular, that's always the one that everybody loves to talk about is retail. Why don't we have a Target? Why don't we have a bowling alley or a movie theater? Why can't we get Chipotle? I hear these all the time. And I think one of the, and I don't want to say problems or issues, I think that retail's a little bit different now than it was before the recession. And so there are businesses that were quick to expand, a lot of retailers that were quick to expand before the recession, and big box specifically. And so after the recession, you just had a lot of hesitancy to enter markets with a small population. And Galt at 25,000 people can be considered small a lot of times from some of the larger retailers. And so I think, as we've grown and as we've seen housing development happen, we've definitely garnered the interest of a lot of a variety of users on the retail side and restaurants. The Cimarron commercial site is probably our largest commercial development property that it is the largest piece of property we have in town for commercial development.
So for
And
those who don't know, that's the site she's mentioning. We call it the Notch. That's like the nickname, but it's the area that's between Simmerhorn and Bossau, north to south, and between Marengo and the freeway, east to west. It's that big square of land that you look out when you're driving. If you get on Central Galt, you look out to your right. It's that whole area now. What they're doing a bunch of infrastructure out there now, but that's for the housing part. That's for the residential part on the back.
Mhm.
But the whole front, how much acreage is the front commercial?
it is roughly 45 acres of commercial highway commercial land. And so
It's 45 acres of just the commercial piece.
well, there's about 10 acres of residential that was rezoned last year
Okay.
as part of our
Oh,
housing
I didn't. Wow, I
element.
didn't know it was that much. I thought it was way
Um,
less than that. Okay.
But, that really to be determined on what actually develops as it relates to the commercial,
Mhm.
because if you have a big user that comes in and that's interested, that developer is going to need all 45 acres for that development.
Gotcha.
And so what we would do is work with the developer to, that rezone was done as part of our housing element. So we had to do a higher density 10-acre piece. It ended up on that property, but we could relocate that if we need to. And so that 40-acre piece has been really kind of on the drawing board since I started here in 2015. It is really large, I think, in terms of scalability on the commercial front. And
So we've been looking to try to develop that piece for at least 10 years.
we have, yes.
It's actually
And-
longer than that, I think, but I think really actively working hard for 10 years.
And it's a great piece of property. It is right on the freeway. I mean, I don't know of a piece of commercial property that has better visibility from Highway 99
No.
and better access. You've got
Mhm.
Simmerhorn and you've got the C Street interchange. And so, that's a big retail property.
And you got
So-
those new interchanges, the new C Street and the A Street interchange, which we built,
Yeah.
a few years back. Well, more than a few now, but anyways, that was, done to preface that area. So
Mhm.
we would have a robust infrastructure of people exiting and getting back on the freeway and all
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
no, access is key to that site. And so, it is a large piece of property. And I think that's great from a development perspective, but it's hard for just one user to locate there. You're not going to just get one fast food user or one gas station to locate. Usually it's a comprehensive development, and that's how this is envisioned to develop. And so I've been marketing this site since 2015. I typically will do 1 or 2 trade shows a year for retail recruitment purposes specifically. And
So who's at trade shows? I mean, you go to a trade show and like all the players are there, like you got so-and-so and you go up to them and you're like, hey, I'm from Galt. I'm Amy Mendez from Galt. Have you thought about Galt? And is that kind of how it is, sort of?
A little bit, the International Council of Shopping Centers is the ICSC trade show. That's
Okay.
kind of the trademark for these retail kind of recruitment opportunities. And this is filled with retailers, so actual representatives of retailers, of restaurants, of fast food users, brokers who represent these users, real estate developers who do large scale development or small scale development, and then cities. There's a lot of cities there. And really, it's just an opportunity for us to meet and confer and talk to, and market ourselves, really. We've done tables in the past where, I set up a table and it's a 2-day event and people that walk by ask about Galt.
That sounds
and
exciting, actually.
It is a lot of fun. It's actually a great
No,
event.
that would be awesome.
And in Monterey is typically where the ICSC
It's in Monterey?
Northern
Oh.
California show is held.
Wait,
Yes,
how come
it
I-
is.
Heck
Hey,
yeah, it would be.
a lot of people bring mayors. They bring city
Really?
managers. Yeah, I mean,
Well, shoot,
it's a
I would
great
go.
marketing opportunity, and really you're selling the city. And so I will go every March. I go to this trade show religiously. I've been every year, and we'll sit down. I'll have meetings beforehand. I'll schedule meetings to meet with retailers, to meet with brokers who represent retailers. A lot of them have booths set up, so I can stop and drop by and give them my business card and hand them marketing material for the city and show them sort of what it is I'm marketing. They're always asking, how big is Galt? How many people
Right.
are there?
And is
Right?
that do you think that's the biggest challenge with when you once you drop the population number, people are just like, yeah, we're not interested. I mean, you have to explain to them that we're like an island and we have Harold and Thornton and you have these feeder rural areas, and we're really kind of an island in Sac County, right? And so you got to drive 10 miles that way or 10 miles this way. And so you have to try to convince them, well, you need to come look at us.
And there's a lot of data that I bring. It's not just our housing population, right? But it's all about how many people we draw. So I have data that shows who's shopping at Walmart. We subscribe to it's kind of creepy, but it's like Big Brother. You know, you have a cell phone on you, and they track where you're going, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
they know where you're shopping and where you live. And so that data is really helpful from a marketing perspective to be able to show, hey, I have data that shows who's shopping at our Walmart. And this is people from my own and Harold and Wilton and Thornton. And so we're pulling from a much larger area to this, community. In addition, we have the Galt market. And, I think what's unique about the market is I'm able to show that we have in the last, I think, numbers I pulled were from September. There were 12,000 people per week coming to the Galt market.
So you're telling me that this data is from September, like 3 months ago, September, that roughly 12,000 people, that the Galt market draws 12,000 people a week into town.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
So, that's a huge number, and we're able to show where they're from. So, I can look at who's coming to the market, and we're not drawing from Galt. We're drawing from Stockton and from Lodi and from Elk Grove and from South Sacramento. That's kind of the ring of the attraction component.
And we've gotten success. I mean, there's been businesses that have recognized that and said, yeah, we think we're gonna take a chance on Galt. I mean, just thinking right now, Dutch Brothers, for example, Starbucks. I mean, you got 2 Starbucks, and then we have the Popeyes chicken, I guess, is coming.
Yes.
You have the Jamba juice, which is part of the 76 station. Those are the ones that pop up in my head. But these are ones like Dutch Brothers would be one that really would be a standout. They went right next to the freeway. They obviously, Dutch Brothers isn't going to go somewhere unless they can be successful.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they're here.
And I think, so there's a story to be told. It's not just what our population is, but it's all these other factors that really tie into it. And so, I'll schedule meetings. I've talked to Home Depot. I've talked to Chipotle. I've talked to In-N-Out Burger. I've talked to all these brokers who represent these users. I've talked to these users in person. There's typically a Southern California trade show that is in March is Monterey, which is a good show for us because everybody knows where Galt is. Everybody knows the Highway 99 corridor.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the cities in Northern California. I'll go to Southern California, and I have to be really intentional about scheduling appointments so that I have given information to brokers or to retailers before I get there. So I don't spend 20 minutes trying to describe where Galt is and, how many people we have. And
Right.
Housing is a big one. That's always a question. Where's the growth? And so what's happening on the east side of the freeway as it relates to the Cimarron commercial project in particular, that was kind of an island out there by itself. There was no development happening. And so having Elliott Ranch under construction just to the east is huge. You see construction activity, you see people living out there, Dry Creek Oaks, having been constructed. And so,
I mean, that's originally where the Walmart was intended to be in the
Correct.
beginning, and then the whole thing kind of went sideways, and they ended up going out there. So, and in retrospect, I do wish. I mean, it's great because we have that great property now that we can market to users, right? But in retrospect, Galt is kind of fractured in 2 pieces, and we have kind of a weird footprint, right? And if that Walmart had gone in the notch, I think it would have really been like the link pin to tie the community together. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but in retrospect.
yeah, and and maybe it was for good reason, right? We have an opportunity now, I think, to really target the users that we want to see. I've had a number of conversations, and I think one of the struggles we have is that really the only piece of commercial property that's out there available for development, and everybody wants to be near the freeway. That's the other thing. We want to be right next to the freeway,
of course.
easy access,
Yeah.
because we can't just depend on your population. So we want to be able to pull people from off the freeway. And so Cimarron now is really that topic of conversation, but we don't, outside of Cimarron, we don't have anything else available for
But it's
for
a great
commercial
piece of land,
development.
though, for that.
It is amazing. The problem is, I think it's too big. And so we've been working with the developer to put together a comprehensive site plan of what could develop there, right? Identifying uses and square footages, and development takes a very long time in California. If you didn't know that, there's environmental that has to be done, and engineering and design for roadways and how big roadways are, and
Caltrans has input.
Caltrans has input specifically on that project because it's right off of the freeway, and so there's a lot of factors that play into it, but that's typically the route I go is with retail, specifically when I'm looking for national or, regional chains to come into the community. And so, I've talked to these uses and everybody, I think for the most part have said, hey, we want to be there. Chipotle, hey, we would love a place in Galt. Where can we go? And we've got 40 acres.
So just
when is that ready for
just to out
development?
that right now, you've had a conversation with Chipotle, and Chipotle is interested in opening in Galt.
They would.
Is that true, or is that a
yes,
myth?
if there was a piece of property ready for development, we would be able to get them to locate.
Ready development, meaning like a Target went in there and then they did the infrastructure and it was ready.
Mhm.
And you had like, here's a fast food pad, or so it's
Yep.
all kind of ready for people to go in.
Shovel
they would-
ready. If it was a shovel ready pad, yeah, they would absolutely. And and Chipotle has shown interest north of Twin Cities. There's a piece of property that's zoned commercial. It just has a lot of, there's a lot of development pieces
Yeah,
that go
that's a
into
tricky
it.
spot. Yeah.
We do have commercial property available on Twin Cities and Carilion, just across the street from Rite Aid. There's a developer who is actively going through.
So on the right, on the south side of Twin Cities, just across from Rite Aid,
Yes.
on that corner, yeah, that big field, yeah.
So that property recently sold. There's an environmental document underway. They have to do a traffic
By
study.
the way, we're going to talk about the Rite Aid building in a minute, so stay tuned. There's a
Yes.
lot of talk about that, so we're going to circle back to that. So don't forget.
So we do have other properties that I market, and I'll also market vacancies. So the location where Tractor Supply is, there's the Subway that closed. We'll talk to folks about that, and you have to target kind of the square footage. You have to know what you're looking for. It's a small space, so I have to be careful about who I'm marketing to. But that's an easy space for a restaurant to
So
go into.
speaking of Target, just because you keep mentioning
Mhm.
it, true or false, has Target showed any interest in Galt at all
Yes, they have actually, in that 40-acre site.
on the Notch property, the
Yes.
Summerhorn property?
They pitched the site to their real estate committee. This was in 2022 in the summer. And they pitched the site to the Target corporate real estate committee, and they said that they weren't ready yet for Galt, specifically because of our housing.
That was in 2022.
Mhm. Yeah. So, now that we're getting closer with this development, I think everybody knows the elephant in the room is Maverick. We have an application for the property. This is the commercial
The Maverick
property,
gas station.
the Maverick gas station. So there's movement on this site.
And by
now.
the way, that's not approved yet. Just saying, what she means by application is businesses will put in applications, and those applications have to. There's tweaks made to them, and this and that, and then when they come up with like a final plan, more or less, about what they want, then it goes before the planning commission, and the planning commission is the one who makes decisions on those things. So, the Mavericks is not even set to go to planning, I think, for at least another month or two, maybe 3, because they're not ready to. They haven't finalized what they want to do. So that's what she's referring to in regards to the Mavericks. So
Yeah. So, I think that we have an application for Maverick. This is a gas station, convenience store, food counter operator that had submitted an application. We have to process legally any application we receive for a development similar to this. Maverick is one piece of this 45-acre site. And so we're actively in conversations with the developer for the whole 45-acre site. They're tweaking a site plan right now that shows all sorts of users on it. We've had preliminary discussions with fast food uses. I think that a lot of people would love to see here who are showing interest on the site.
like who?
In-N-Out Burger. We've talked to them. We've had several meetings with them.
So you had
And
several meetings with In-N-Out Burger about coming to Galt.
We do not have an application from them.
Right.
I don't want
Yeah.
anybody to
Yeah.
go in an uproar.
But they're interested.
Yes, they are interested. Panda Express, we've heard from them. No applications, nothing is concrete. These are just phone calls that we have to, we take and we talk to folks. And
So it's like you feel like they're kind of hovering. Is it like a mindset where everybody's kind of hovering, and then when somebody jumps in, then,
Yes.
then they all want to jump in? Is that how it works?
yes.
Yeah.
And the land's not ready. The property's not ready yet. Dan, as a former planning commissioner, knows that there's a lot of steps that you get a packet for planning commission, and you have to read through what the application includes. And there's all sorts of stuff that is included as part of that environmental. And then there's if it's a CUP, that's a conditional use permit, and so there's all kinds of conditions that are attached to a project. You get to look at the design and the site plan and the layout
And
and
the roadways
And,
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 the,
and I don't have an opinion on anything that's just a rumor. I don't have an opinion when I was on planning. I don't have an opinion until I have something in front of me
Yeah.
to have an opinion on.
right.
So
And we, you know, everything is still, like I said, this is also preliminary. You know, we've had discussions, but what happened is we received an application from Maverick, the developer for the property, for the whole Simmerhorn property. We are actively talking to. We meet with them probably on a biweekly basis. We have an ongoing conference with them to talk about what's next, the design, the internal roadway structure
on the whole property.
We're not on the whole property. How that whole site is going to develop. They're in design right now for the internal roadway. How does that connect? So basically, it's going to go from Simmerhorn through the site, and it will connect at Crystal. What does that look like? You know, how is that constructed? Where's the water and sewer lines at? Where are they connecting to? And so, you know, there's a whole bunch of moving parts to this, but there's activity, there's talk. People and retailers and restaurants
there's a buzz going about it,
that this is a potential site that's going to be coming forward. And so now all of a sudden we're starting to field phone calls on it. And there's been a lot of interest. And I think that that's exciting. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up on, you know, this is
right.
In-N-Out Burger will be open by the end of the year. But I do think that we're making really good progress on sort of that outreach component and having true interest. And I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, one, you mentioned the fact that we're an island, right? People have to drive really outside of Galt for a lot of things, different types of soft goods. So
outside
of
retail
Walmart,
has retail has always been a tough nut. I mean, you know, Walmart's here now, right? I mean, Walmart really is the only place in Galt, unless I'm not thinking of it. Well, Tractor Supply has some, right? So Tractor Supply and Walmart are really the only places you can buy clothing in Galt. Right?
Or shoes.
Shoes, right?
You know, towels.
But how many times have we
goods.
seen a clothing store or a shoe store or something in our lifetime in Galt that just couldn't survive? It's just, and then now you have the internet where people buy stuff online, you know, clothes and shoes and stuff. It's like maybe even tougher. But
I have a question on that development. How do we make sure, like, what's the important factors to keep that commercial property from being developed and turning into another Chaos Corner? Because the Chaos Corner, it was piecemealed. And that was that's really what the issue is out there.
I think that Planning Commission will see a comprehensive site plan that shows exactly where the proposed building layouts are. And so you'll see sort of how that all works together.
But that takes a big person, a big company to come in. Like it takes an anchor business to come in to give us that. Because it's not like again, you know, you're talking Maverick or you're talking some maybe even Target or whatever, any place like that. That would be the anchor. And then they would say, okay, this is what the rest of it's going to look like, instead of we're going to develop this way and this way, and then we end up with another Chaos Corner that's, you know, 4 times as large.
Well, and I think, you know, going back to Lincoln Way, lesson learned about Chaos Corner. I think one of the disadvantages of the development on the corner of Twin Cities is that you had McDonald's that came first, that was an independent parcel owned by one person. Right. And then to follow that, we ended up with the Arco Starbucks AM/PM that developed on the parcel.
So somebody's asking what's Chaos Corner. So that's a nickname that I don't know where it came from. Somebody online. That's just the going, and what we're referring to as Chaos Corner is where McDonald's and the Arco and the Starbucks drive-through all kind of dump out into that same little area, and they call it Chaos Corner because if you've been over there at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, it's like taking your life in your own hands. So that's Chaos Corner for those of you who are wondering.
And I think that to the city's credit, did what they could in order to piece that project together from a circulation standpoint. It wasn't a comprehensive development because it was 3 different parcels. And so we had McDonald's first, and we had to try to connect it to the Arco AM/PM, also to Galt Village. And then we also had the car wash come. And so it's a hodgepodge out there.
And you had the state involved because of the location next to the freeway, and Twin Cities Road is a state highway. Yeah. I mean, so again, you've got so many different factors working in there.
So people have asked, like, well, why can't we get a Home Depot? Because people feel like, we don't have a place to buy lumber and tools and things like that. And a Home Depot, to be honest with you, that would be a great, Ace Hardware's, I go to Ace Hardware. They're like the quick stop of that type of stuff. But there's a lot of stuff that they obviously don't have. And I wouldn't want to, I don't like the idea of hurting an Ace Hardware by bringing somebody else. And there's always that balance about, well, who's this going to, oh, it's great, we're going to have this, but who's that going to hurt? Like if a Chipotle comes in, how is that going to impact the Mexican food restaurants? But I think at the same time too, I think there's a balance, obviously. But with related to Home Depot and Lowe's, I've been told, correct me if I'm wrong, that there's probably not going to be any interest anytime soon in a Home Depot or Lowe's, because they know how many people from Galt go to their Oak Grove stores and their Lodi stores, and they would just simply be pulling business from those stores.
They don't want to cannibalize, right, their other stores. And
Right.
so they're really cognizant of, Home Depot's just down the way on Harney in Lodi. And, same with Lowe's up in Elk Grove. And so they know who's shopping at their stores. I mean, everybody nowadays,
I wish we would get like a local lumber yard. We used to have a local lumber yard.
Which one? The Diamond?
The Diamond Lumber that caught fire. Yeah. But I mean, Galt could use a lumber yard.
Well, I thought about that today when I was driving over here, because I drove by and I thought, Robinson's was right around the corner and they burnt down.
Yeah.
Next to them was Diamond Lumber. They burnt down.
Yeah, I know.
And I thought, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, talking about old businesses real quick, one of the things people says, why can't we get a bowling alley? Why can't we get a bowling alley? So I did a little bit of research. Do you know what year the Galt Bowling Alley was built?
Was built? Probably in the late 50s?
1965.
65. Okay. Yeah.
Do you know how much it cost in 1965 to build the Galt Bowling Alley?
$200,000.
More.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
$500,000 is what it was spent to build the Galt Bowling Alley. Now I got on the computer and did the inflation calculation. That would be $5.1 million today.
Look, they got a bowling alley in Lodi.
You have $5.1 million to invest in a bowling alley.
People keep saying, why can't we do a bowling alley? Lodi did, but you know how much that place cost to build and open?
Right.
I mean,
But that's what I'm saying, is that the idea of, like, again, like you mentioned, the city doesn't build businesses.
Yeah.
And nowadays, to build something like that, you have to be part of a corporation or part of a much larger business.
There's a bigger conversation where it's like, oh, I know that's great that we might get an In-N-Out Burger. It's great that Target's interested in Galt. But why can't we get more small businesses? Because small business is the heart of a small town. 100% agree. Look, you and I grew up here when every business in Galt was a small business.
Right.
But the reality is that for people to open a small business now, and we're going to talk about that real quick here, about some of the small businesses, and we're going to dive into that and get away from the franchise stuff. But the reality is it's a much bigger gamble nowadays. It costs a lot of money, and it's just the way our society has shifted. It's not as easy to do that. So if the city of Galt just can't sit around and go, no, thank you, franchises. We just want to wait for small business, because we would literally just wither up and die.
But
Our budget can't handle that. We can't not have the development because of the sales tax component.
But as part of that, as part of that commercial project, if we get an anchor store, and a lot of times the developers will build, like a strip mall type place, and then they lease out or they rent out those smaller places, and that's where the mom and pop shops can go. That's where that's where you might get a Zesties ice cream or something like that goes into a shopping center like that. So the idea is, but it has to be, you have to have that big anchor business to go in there to get to that point too.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing the information about the Notch property. Super exciting, even though none of it's 100%, right? Super exciting that we now have those people at the table and we're interested. And it's a very big possibility that, we could see In-N-Out Burger, Chipotle, Panda Express, maybe Target, all these different things within the next couple of years in Galt. I mean, it's a possibility. It's more possible now than it ever has been before to see those type of businesses.
This is the
Can
most
you
movement
imagine the
we've had.
amount of tax dollars with Measure R and Measure Q in place? So Measure R funds the police department. Measure Q is for Parks and Recreation. Those are all sales tax based. Do you imagine? Now you probably know these numbers more, but I would guess, in my opinion, that In-N-Out Burger would probably be the number 2 sales tax generator behind Walmart if they were to move in. You think I'd be wrong about that?
I don't think so. We've actually gotten projections from our sales tax consultant to kind of figure out what generates what in terms of sales tax. And California is a little weird with drive-through.
Oh, okay.
And so it's not
gotcha.
as lucrative,
Right.
but it is. I mean, it's a good sales tax generator.
Yeah, but if you have In-N-Out Burger and Chipotle and Panda in that area, you're talking about the trifecta there. You're talking about a big bump in some sales tax. Of course, you get a Target, then you're talking about Target would probably be the number 2 behind Walmart. I mean, it might even be the number 1 depending on. They're obviously they're competitors. I mean, those are huge boosts. That then you're talking about a lot of money flowing into the community. And here's the thing I want to put stop before I forget about it. As you know, Amy and this is the age-old thing about Galt. People are get really worked up about development, houses specifically. Like, oh my God, they're building more houses. There goes small town Galt. I'm leaving. The hell with this place. You know, we have ruined our small town. Blah blah blah. And I understand that because I feel the same way about houses. I don't necessarily want to see hundreds and hundreds more houses, but we all know that development with houses is kind of taking its own path because we're being mandated and whatever. But for this council and for myself personally, it's always been equality, not quantity. What I would love to see is more quality things for the people of Galt that do live here now to be able to enjoy. I'm not necessarily interested in bringing a bunch more people here. That will take care of itself and it will happen. But I like when we're really focusing in on bringing more amenities for us to enjoy. And there's no better money because we're a bedroom community, right?
Yeah, very much
So most of our money comes from property tax.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to keep Galt healthy and keep Measure Q and Measure R and the budget healthy so we can have great parks and we can have great programs and we can have great streets and landscaping that looks nice and all the things that people in Galt want, right? In order to have those things, we have to have money. And if most of our money traditionally, historically has come from housing and rooftops, we have to be able to shift and say, how can we get that money from somewhere else? And that notch property, there's no better money than people that come down the freeway and they get off and they spend their money in Galt and we get that money and they get on the freeway and they keep going. That's the best kind of money there is, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at the sales tax component that we would receive, just the city general fund, and you get just as much for Measure Q, and then 50% of that for Measure R, and it's a huge boost for the city. Yep. I think just from a budget perspective, but from a quality of life perspective, as it relates to
there's a reason why we call it Measure Q, and I know there's some people that are not. There's probably some people that are watching that weren't fans of Measure Q. There's a lot of people that understand what Measure Q is doing for our community. We've already started to see that with the skate park, for example, and the water slide and all these landscaping changes we're talking about, and more thing, and all the playgrounds we've been replacing. That's all Measure Q. And the list, we've just gotten started with Measure Q. I think when my term's over in 2 years from now, and I will spend 8 years on the city council, I think the one thing that I will be most happy that I accomplished for this town was getting Measure Q over the goal line. That is going to be a game changer for this community for decades to come. And so I'm proud of it. I'm proud of that we did it. And I think it's going to be totally worth it. I have somebody asking about California Burrito. What's going on with California Burrito at the old Burger King spot? Yes. I've seen them. It's like, you see, they painted and then the place sits there for a month and they painted. I mean, is it just a slow process or what's happening?
It is. They acquired 3 Burger King locations. So California Burrito, when they acquired the Burger King here, they also acquired a location in Turlock and Sonora.
Oh.
This is kind of the last one to be remodeled.
Okay.
And so they opened Sonora. I think they were working on Turlock. They just got their business license.
Wow.
They've been slowly kind of
so it's coming though. It's just a slow process.
It is, yeah. Okay. And we've been in touch with them because we had some issues with code enforcement and such on the site, and they're quick to react and get out there. So I think they did share with us it would be within the next 60 to 90 days.
So the next 60 to 90 days, we're going to be, California Burger will be open.
Yeah.
You think? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So for those of you who are asking about California Burrito, did I say California Burger? I think I did. Yeah, California Burrito.
There's also another Mexican food restaurant going up on Twin Cities Road.
Yes.
But that is not in the city limits, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
We have I don't know anything about it because it's in the county.
Yeah. Let's shift to small business talk now. So we've been talking about, how we're going to try to court, we're going to, court this business and in this franchise and this franchise. But I think Galt, traditionally has been, a small business community, right? And I know I talked about how that's shifted, but Galt's been, really trying to do a lot to really, support the small businesses that are here, not just the small business that already exist, but also people that want to open small businesses. So one of the first things we did on the city council when I was elected in 2018 is we passed an infill, and I think you were the one that brought it to council and said we need to waive these. There's fees when you want to occupy a vacant building. There's water connection fees and there's permit fees, whatever. And we chopped those tremendously. As a matter of fact, Papa's and Wings wouldn't even be there if we hadn't chopped their fee tremendously to allow them to open finally. Because that spot in the corner was empty for 10 years. Nobody wanted to move there. And so that policy change, what we did right that first right off the get-go, made that happen, right? And so things like that we've done. And tell us about just briefly, the facade improvement program that's happening right now, or the
The
business
business
match,
grant.
the business match. Yeah.
So back in September, the city council allocated funding, ARPA funding, federal grant funds that we had received.
Which is basically leftover COVID money.
Correct. Initially, council allocated $1.3 million to small businesses in Galt through, basically it was a COVID grant that we were providing to businesses. There was some leftover funds from that. And so an allocation for a program that I had brought back in September was for a small business grant match program. And the premise of that was to really incentivize businesses and property owners really in the Old Town area to invest in their buildings and in their businesses. And so this was a grant match. We would match an investment up to $20,000 for a business or property owner who was doing improvements to their business. And it could be a facade improvement.
So it wasn't just a facade. Somebody wanted to buy, if you were a restaurant and you wanted to put in a new freezer and you need a new freezer because you were expanding your kitchen, or if you're putting an awning in the front. So it could be facade, it could be equipment that you needed inside your business. It actually was a wide range of things, right? And if they spend 20,000, the city would match it with 20,000,
Yep.
up to 20,000,
up to
right?
20. And
Yeah.
so, and we were out of funding. We have issued, basically approvals on, I don't even know how many we have at this point, but it started to catch on and a lot of the businesses heard about it.
Mhm.
And we will allocate all 200,000 into the Old Town area. And I think that you'll start to see a little bit of a transformation in some of the exterior of the businesses. There were quite a few facade improvements that we had funded. There also is some tenant improvements, so interior build out improvements for a couple of new businesses that are coming into town, mostly offices type businesses. There are sidewalk dining. So we were trying to encourage outdoor dining for restaurants. I just had a conversation with the Mix Up on C Street, and they wanted.
By the way,
dining.
the Mix Up, just want to give them plugs. You mentioned it. The Mix Up is the new restaurant that used to be where Street Land is in Old Town on C Street, right by the alley. They have phenomenal food. Like it's not like anything else we have in town. It's super good, healthy, fresh food. I get, my favorite is they make a really good ribeye sandwich, but I get these chicken. They have chicken kebabs, lamb kebabs, and ribeye. I get the chicken ones. Comes with rice, comes with a salad, the dressing, and they make this pita bread with like hummus, and it's all amazing. If you have not tried it, and the people, it's a small business. It's a husband, wife, and their daughters work there, all family ran business, and they super passionate about the kind of food they make. And it's a Mediterranean type food. Their menu's phenomenal. Check them out. Look at their reviews online. People have been talking about it. You got to check it out. They're open like lunch and dinner only. Like they open at like 12ish, but you got to check them out. I just want to say that they're phenomenal.
Yeah. So back to, the Mix Up, we had a conversation with them. They really want to move some dining outdoors because they're kind of limited. It's a small space. And so, those are the types of things that we want to fund as part of this. So the business invests a certain amount of money and then we match it. And I think it has been wildly successful. We have lots of applicants that we've approved for exterior and interior improvements. Equipment was also allowed for businesses who needed to purchase new equipment, freezers, ovens, whatever it might be. So that was adopted back in September. We opened the applications in October, closed it in December. We are out of funding, and that is approximately it's over 200,000 that we'll probably allocate by the end of it. So
I have someone asking, do you think there's any chance there'll ever be any type of second round or any kind of program like this in the future with different funding? Do you foresee any of that? Or do you think that's a one shot because that was COVID money left over from our ARPA money?
I think that we'll know how successful this has been when we're finished with it and when we can kind of report back to council on the type of investment that we were able to, kind of encourage. And that might be a good kind of starting point to have that conversation. The program exists, so it'd be easy for us to kind of transfer to, if there's an additional pot of money that the city council wants to put towards something.
And that program was a piggyback off of the original. So we got what it's like, I don't know, I'm going to get into numbers, but $5 or $6 million of ARPA money, right? Which with various things. This is federal money that was given by the Biden administration during COVID for business relief from, So we originally designated 1.3 million to go directly to businesses, and there was a round of if you had been impacted that we gave out money. And we went like 2 rounds of that,
Mhm.
and then we still had all that money left over. And that's why we said, well, it has to go to businesses some other way. So this is the creative way you guys came up with, whatever. So another example of basically, if you look at it, we have given one in the last, 3 years, 4 years, well, actually 5 years, so it's 2020. So in the last 5 years, we've given out basically $1.3 million to golf businesses.
By the
Right?
end of it, we will have,
Yeah.
we allocated 200 to the small business assistance program, the COVID grant, relief grant that we did. We had roughly, I don't remember the number exactly of how many businesses we
Yeah.
funded, but we gave out $785,000 in COVID relief to businesses in town. We also did the small business assistance program. We did.
And just to say that, I mean, and really, for your knowledge, businesses like Walmart or these big places, they really didn't take advantage of any of that money, right?
This
mainly
was
went to
only for small business.
It was only for small business. So we said this is for small business
Yeah.
only. So when people say that, I mean, people don't always say this, but occasionally I'll get it like, well, are adults only interested in getting like the franchise or the McDonald's or Burger King? But we do a lot to try to help our small businesses and court them and do what we can to help waive this or waive that or put some money out there and whatever, because we understand the importance. This council and this city understands the importance of the small business. So we try to find creative ways. It's because taxpayer money, of course. So you have to be, you can't just, you have to do it in the proper way. It has to be legal, and those programs have to make sense. But I think, it's good. It's good. And I think, you know what? I mean, look at this, Dan. So at Old Town Galt, right? You and I remember on 4th Street, like where Brewster's is going all the way down. It was all boarded up buildings.
Right.
There's nothing down there.
Right.
When we were kids, it was all boarded up buildings.
Yeah.
There literally is only one space that I know of that's empty in Old Town, and it's not because people don't want to move in there. It's because the landlord has just been kind of iffy about, filling it, but it's going to get filled probably soon. But that's the only spot, that corner there on 4th and C. I mean, it's crazy that we've come so far. People don't even realize how far we've come. We got a tavern down here. We got a brewery. We have Brewster's, of course, which is a huge one. We have our place, the coffee shop. We have the salon, the corner. We have, the mix up. I mean, tons of places.
A cookie factory.
Yeah,
a
which
cookie
has
shop,
been, there a long time.
cupcake shop, a cake shop,
By the way,
But-
if somebody answered the trivia question saying Spawn's Cookies is oldest business, and I want to say that's not the correct answer. We're going to announce the right answer here soon. But Spawn's Cookies is actually the oldest business that's operating in Galt under continual ownership by the same family since 1958. That's when they started. So, but that is not the oldest business that's still operating, just so people are thinking Spawn's.
One thing, talking about the support that the city has given to the businesses in town, but I think we should take a minute to thank the businesses in town who are constantly supporting the schools and the youth programs and doing the announcing for the high school for the football team. We get the programs and I've got a list every year of they want me to thank all these different businesses in town that have donated to the program. And every year that list gets longer and longer and longer.
Yeah.
And it's all small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
It's mom and pops.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just as important. And that's part of that small town feel that we all talk about wanting to maintain and keep a hold of is the businesses giving back to the communities as well. And then the community returns it by obviously going and
not to knock franchises and stuff, but to be honest with you, I've went out and tried to solicit sponsorships for many activities that have been happening in town that I was involved with, right? And you go into a corporate place, and I'm not going to name names because I don't want to bash the business, but they'll be like, oh, well, that has to go through corporate. You have to talk to corporate. Or even like, can I put a flyer up for an event we're having? Oh yeah, our policies, we don't put flyers in the windows for corporate order. But you know what? You go down to the local, you go to Velvet Grill, you go to Denny's, and Denny's is a franchise, but they were good about it. But you go to our coffee shop, whatever. Can I put a flyer up for your event? I mean, we got the whole window just plastered with all kinds of flyers. And businesses, small businesses, you go to look at Kirk at Velvet Grill. Kirk, he is so generous. You go to him, hey, can you sponsor? Yeah, what can I do for you? How much do you need? I mean, the unfortunate part is they're the ones that can least afford it is these small businesses, but they give the most. The Walmarts of the world, the ones who can really afford it. But of course, it's a little bit of a process to go through Walmart to get things. And Walmart's been generous. I'm not knocking them. They've been helpful in many ways. But I can't stress enough what you just said, Dan, is that but historically it's the small mom and pop shops that have been keeping these programs, football and sponsored the Boy Scout.
But that's part of that small town feel that everybody talks about when they talk about what they want to keep Galt. They don't want to lose that. And we've talked about how do you maintain it and how do you keep it. And that's a big part of it is the local mom and pop businesses giving back and being supported.
So
by
as
the
Galt
community at the
grows
same time.
and as Galt adds franchise businesses, as the Chipotles of the world and the In-N-Out Burgers and all those come to Galt eventually or whatever, and no matter what it is, as those come, it is equally important that we as Galtonians still support and go eat at the little mom and pop restaurants and those places and support those, because the corporate places, they're going to do fine. They're always going to, they're going to do fine. And they've done all their analysis. And then when they move into a place, it's usually a 90% success story. But it's the small mom and pops that you just remember that these are the places that keep this town alive and give it its heart. So
I think too, as Galt grows, and even now, you talked about having the businesses boarded up down here. This is the fabric of the community, right? Are these small businesses, and creating a synergy down here and creating activity and having people want this to be the place to hang out. This is what the most important part is, I think, from my perspective, is the Old Town development. And one of the things that we're funding as part with leftover COVID funds that we had dedicated to economic development, of that 1.3 million is an Old Town visionary plan. And so really kind of diving in and talking to the businesses and talking to the residents about how we activate our spaces in the Old Town area. Right across from the coffee shop, you have all of this land that really can't be used for much of anything because it's owned by the railroad. But I think there's an opportunity to engage the railroad to really kind of get creative on things that we can do on the railroad property that potentially could bring people into the Old Town area. The city owns the property across the street from Brewster's.
The open lot,
What is the best use of that property? Should we do an RFP to try to see if we can bring a user in to do a brewery or some type of, should it be a park space of some, should we have a splash pad there? What is it that we should do with these spaces? And so this Old Town
people were watching the show and they were dozing off. They're like, "Wait, I heard splash pad. What? Did I just? Did they really say splash pad, or did I just imagine that?" Yeah, we're not going to put a splash pad on that lot.
But you really do want to look at what you can do to bring people down here, right? And you have the restaurants and you have the the coffee shops and the dessert places and the wineries and the the breweries. But how do you activate the space just generally down here and make this a place where people
we have all these activities. I mean, we have the Saturday market's been doing really well in the Old Town, and we have our parade, which isn't just Old Town; it's for Galt in general. It's for the west side of town. The parade's phenomenal. I mean, I tell you what, our Christmas parade this last time around, they said it was our biggest we've ever had. We had the most entries we've ever had. The Christmas
over
parade.
90,
it was phenomenal. Yeah, 90 entries, but one entry could be like 25 vehicles. I mean, they're literally like, the parade was 2 hours long. 2 hours. I mean, it's phenomenal. And I participate in almost every parade. I'm in it in some form or another. And I come around these corners sometimes, and I'm just blown away by I'm like, oh my God, look how many people are out here. It is crazy. I mean, you're just so proud. You're so proud that this is the town I live in, and these people are coming out. People told me, somebody came from another town. I had a true story. I have a friend who's a real estate agent. She said she had a family that lives in Lodi, and they were thinking about moving to Galt. And they're like, well, we're not really sure. I don't know, whatever. And they came to the Christmas parade, and they were looking at a house. They were thinking about making an offer on it. They were kind of on the fence about it. And after the Christmas parade, she said they came right up to me and said, we want to make that offer on that house. Yeah, just because of the parade. So, I mean, people see that and they go, these are the things that make Galt a small town and make it what it is. And those events, and the city's been very supportive of those events. I mean, we have not only the parades and all that, but, the chamber does a phenomenal job with all their events. We had the Old Town Dinner Dance. You have the Farm to Fork, which is done by FFA. There's all these organizations that do all these little, these great things, right? We had the Old Galt Festival, which was a one-off. Well, it wasn't a one-off, but it was a, initial kickoff event, which was major success. And there's talks about doing that again. But it's those things that make the small town, right? Tell us about, before I forget, there's a small town, there's a small business owner who's been buying up some buildings and doing some things in town, who bought the O'Hara Realty building on Lincoln Way.
Correct.
So right across from Old Town Diner, or I call it Old Town Diners, but it's called Hefe's or whatever. So right on the, where it used to be O'Hara Realty, he bought that building and he's putting a restaurant in there, right? And you told me that he has an architect his architect is the one who did the Pie Bar in Woodbridge. His architect is that guy. So, I mean, you're like, I think he's going to be a great place.
We had a meeting with him, a couple months ago, and I think that the person who bought it is a local guy, right? He lives here. He wants to see the Old Town area developed. He wants to see Lincoln Way developed. He sees a vision there, and I love that. And so, the building was for sale. I think he saw an opportunity and he wants to put a restaurant. We met with the architect. This architect has done restaurants all up and down like the West Coast. Phenomenal. I mean, some of the stuff that he talked about was just spectacular. And so that's exciting, right? Activating that area of Lincoln
Well,
Way.
and hearing a story about a small business, we're sitting there talking about the, In-N-Out burgers and things like that, but it's great. It excites me to see that people like the couple that owns a Mix Up, people that are willing to roll the dice and open a place in Galt. It just excites me. So, I'm excited. I'm interested to see what kind of food it's going to be. I know Mark, is very passionate, and so hopefully he'll do a great job on it. I'm sure he will. I'm sure it'll look great. He did a great job with the Galt Herald building that he bought, and he did. It looks phenomenal. So, yeah, I think it's cool. I do want to say, I want to give a shout out since we're talking about small businesses, and I've said this before, but I want to set out that I come from a history of business owners in Galt. So both of my grandmothers both owned businesses in Galt. So before my grandmother, Gladys Farmer, was the manager of the Galt Flea Market for 33 years.
Oh, wow.
33 years from 1951 to 1985. She was the person in charge of the market. Before she did that, she ran the Sunshine Cafe, which is where, the little thrift shop across from the high school around the corner.
Uh-huh.
That was, it used to be, we all knew it as Polly's Cafe. It was Polly's when we were a kid, right? Well, it was the Sunshine Cafe, and she had it for a few years, and she ran that. And then my other grandmother, my maternal grandmother, my mom's mom, had the first pizza parlor in Galt
Across the street,
on the
right?
corner from a coffee shop. It was called the Bank Club Cafe, and it was a pizza parlor all family ran, and they owned that from 1958 or 9 until like 1961, and they sold it. So first pizza parlor. And there's this myth about pizza places, right? People talk about Mexican restaurants. They go, we got way too many pizza places in Galt. I've debunked that myth. If you look at how the population of Galt is now, and how many pizza places there is, and you like, okay, we have this many pizza places per capita, and you look at when you and I grew up in Galt, Dan, and you had Papa's Pizza at one point, and you had Rico's at one point, and then you had Pizza Palace, of course, which one everybody talks about. And then, if you look at all those, we had way more pizza per capita back in those days than we do now.
Yeah.
It's true. If you do the math, it's way true. Because when you're like 6,000 people and you have 5 pizza places, right now we have like 11 or 10 if you count the Papa Murphy's and all the things, and they have like 11, but we got 25. So if you do the math,
Papa's Pizza had the best salad bar and the best breadsticks.
Oh, the breadsticks were amazing.
And then Pizza Palace had the best calzone and just the best pizza.
Okay, so top three
too.
businesses, top 3 favorite businesses from old school Galt, because we promised people we would bring this back. From old school Galt, top 3 businesses that you missed the most that you wish were still here. Name them. Your top 3.
Well, Pizza Palace. Pizza Palace number 1.
Okay.
I'd say probably Weathers Hardware.
Okay. Yeah.
I got my first hunting license at Weathers
They
Hardware.
were old school. Yeah.
And I never took the hunter safety course or not, but may or may not have, I guess I should say.
And number 3?
Number 3, old school business. Frosty, maybe.
That's a good one. For me, Pizza Palace, Frosty, Baker's Deli.
Oh yeah, Baker's Deli. How can I forget that?
Yeah, and we have this. You could buy all those kinds of food in Galt now.
Yeah,
but maybe it's just because the nostalgia is always sweeter.
You can't get a Baker's Deli sandwich in Galt. I don't care where you go.
Can't.
There was that much meat. Roast beef.
You couldn't even put your mouth in a sandwich. It was that big. It was huge.
But the price was. It was little or nothing too. It was
$2.50 for sandwich, drink, and a Coke for $2.50.
And
So
talking about small businesses and such, I don't know if I know, Sean, but the price of eggs, obviously, I don't know how any restaurant is still serving eggs because
Spawn's Cookies was telling me, they use a lot of eggs for baking pies and stuff. They're like, it's really
crazy.
It's tough. It's real tough. And we go through a lot of eggs at our coffee shop because we do a lot of baking, and it's tough. If you find them and there's limits, so much per customer, and we've been hitting all the Costco's and all this kinds of place, and it's just this avian flu thing has really just decimated the egg market. It's tough. Yeah.
But it's those types of things that occur that really has a huge impact on the small businesses. And that's where I think, that's where those small businesses need a little bit more support during those times just to to make it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to see restaurants closed. I don't want to see businesses closed. But
Yeah. I mean, so we had a really good discussion on this. This is a great topic. I mean, we're definitely going to have you back on the show at some point in the future, Amy, to dive into maybe some other stuff, because there's really a lot of things we could have went down some rabbit holes on these topics and talked about. It's a big discussion. It's a big topic for the show in the amount of time frame we have. So I hopefully it was very informational for everybody who was watching.
we're way over.
Yeah, we're way over time, but it's it's all right. People can watch it. They can they can listen to it on the way to work. They can stream, or they can go back and stream part of it, and they can watch the rest of the show later. But anyways, I want to do the answer to the trivia, and I want to give a couple shout outs. So I want to mention some honorable mentions for the trivia. These are not the winners these are not the businesses that are the longest running, but I want to give them honorable mentions. One of them was Spawn's Cookies, I mentioned, right? Cattleman's Auction has been here for a really, really long time. They're kind of on the outskirts, not really in city limits, but they have been here for a long time. People don't think about them. But Galt Supermarket or Galt Food Centers is called now. We call it IGA. I think you and I call it Galt Super. What do you
call it Galt Super?
Do you call it Galt Super or
Absolutely.
IGA?
No, Galt Super.
Okay.
It's never
So
been IGA.
so they opened in 1966 or 67. I forget the exact year, but that has been a continually operating grocery store since 1966. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And they still got phenomenal Chinese food, by the way. It's really good.
Well,
I go there and get it all the time.
There's another business too.
What?
That you may, I don't know if you're going to mention.
What?
Farmers and Merchants Bank.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Farmers and Merchants Bank's
Yeah.
been here since like 1919 or 19.
I think it's the
20-something
1930s actually.
Yeah,
in
I mean,
Galt.
almost 100 years.
Yeah. So speaking of that, we just threw some numbers out there. What is the oldest Galt business that's continually operating that's still open in Galt? And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm double checking with Kaylin. Did you check the email? So is Mark Jackson. Got it right. It is the Galt Herald. The Galt Herald is the oldest business in Galt. I believe they've been here since 1904, I believe, or 1905, 1901. So 124 years the Galt Herald has been in the
I
city
got
of Galt.
trivia for you. What was the name of the newspaper before the Galt Herald?
The Galt Gazette.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a long history of newspapers too. So anyways, we want to thank everybody for playing. Mark, can drop that card off to you, or you can come by and collect it.
Did you know there was a bowling alley in Galt way back when also?
Before that one?
Before
no.
the Horizon Church.
Oh yeah, over there on the corner where Bayside Church.
saloons. One of the saloons
Yeah.
in town had bowling
Yeah,
inside of
it's
it.
over where Bayside Church is, across
Yeah.
from the fire station.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a picture of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, it said bowl. It says bowling,
Arcade
and bowling.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like in the 80s. Yeah, it was way back.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I want to give a shout out to. I have some friends who live in SoCal and the fires down there. I just want to say, prayers are with those people. I was watching on the news today. It is 1,000 houses have burned, and it's not even. There's like 4 fires.
They don't
going
have
right
enough
now.
firefighters either.
Yeah. So I mean, all this people are talking about how they're upset about this or that in our small town, but we have people that are just literally losing their neighborhoods, from devastating fires. So be thankful that we're not in those areas. And any of you that are watching have loved ones or family in those areas, hopefully they're safe and they can escape, devastation. So I wanted to mention those, and I want to give a shout out to my friend Aaron, who's from Florida. He's leaving to go to South Carolina in a couple of days to drive back. He's been in town, and so it was good seeing you, Aaron, and Godspeed on your trip back. Our next show is going to be January the 22nd. It is also a Wednesday, of course. January 22nd. I'm not going to announce what the topic's going to be or who our guest is, but I will post that online. And so I want to thank Miss Mendez for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank
Very
you.
informational.
Thank
Very,
you.
very informational. It was exciting, and thank you for making time in your evening to be here. Dan, you have anything to throw in there?
I just want to tell everybody to like, subscribe, share,
Yep.
get the word out.
Yeah, get the word out of our show. We're just running this on a shoestring budget.
And if you're an advertiser,
Dan-
you'd like to pay us, by all means, talk
How
to
do
Sean.
we pay? So Dan works at a strip club after hours. He's one of the strippers.
You want to talk
to
about
help-
tax revenue for the city?
to help fund this show. And I
Yeah.
got a lemonade stand I do on the side. And
we need more cannabis clubs. We need poker rooms and more strip clubs to call.
I do have to say, I promised our mutual friend, his name starts with a D. I'm not going to say his name publicly, but he's a senior citizen. And he said, if we have Amy Mendez on there and she's talking about businesses, he said that we need a strip club. Not really, okay. But I promised him I would throw it out there and say that he needed a strip club. He said that seniors need something to do in this town. So there you go. I said it. Okay.
All the vices. That's where you make money.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you for spending time with us this evening. Dan and I really appreciate it. And hopefully it's been fun and informational for you. We look forward to seeing all you back on January the 22nd. So from Dan and I, we would like to say thank you from the Great American Little Town podcast. We wish everybody good night, and we will see you again soon.
In a small town.